Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of Spike Drop. KickedTripod here with Yiska and a barely awake Joseph. Young Volamel in the hood. By the way, did you see that Logic? I always want to say Logic broke like Spotify and Apple Music yesterday and streamed to 100,000 concurrent viewers launching his new album.
Yeah, I didn't hear that he had broke the music apps that all the kids use, but yeah, I saw that he was doing his album reveal or release kind of party on Twitch and being all wholesome and stuff, which I thought was cool. So shout outs to Logic.
There was like I forget who it was. It was like XQC and another streamer kept trying to like throw gifted subs at him. He was just ignoring him. Just ignoring him. Not even like a nod. It was just, he's like, whatever. I guess he had to go XLR too and had some troubles. So
nice.
Interesting. Well, hey, welcome to Spike Drop episode 15. We are a competitive Valorant podcast. We talk about competitive Valorant things. If you wonder why we three do a competitive Valorant podcast, we actually do a competitive Overwatch podcast together called Tactical Crouch that records Mondays and Wednesdays at noon at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. And then we're like, we really like Valorant. We should do a Valorant show too. So we do. And really looking forward to this one. I think the PAX Invitational stuff has been fun. There's some really interesting movements right now. Like, I love discussing movements and like the puzzle pieces of rosters and how everything comes together. It is really fun for me to do. We've got some patch notes too, so we'll be able to go through all of those today. But if you like the show, there's 3 great ways that you can support. Number 1, join us live on Fridays at noon Pacific time at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. Please, please, please do. We are trying to get partner and every concurrent viewer counts so much. And as the Valorant show grows, we'll hopefully, continue to grow that. But right now it's quite a bit smaller, especially on Twitch. So please come say hi to us there. Leave a 5-star iTunes review. We are when you type in Valorant on Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever, we do come up first, but we want to stay there. So leave a 5-star iTunes review there, and that would go a ton there. Otherwise, just you can sub and whatever to the Twitch channel as well if you want. But those other 2 are really helpful ways to do that. Let's get into the news. Not really news, but we got some patch notes. And Joe, I think you're going to like these. I don't know if you're going to like these, but I think that they are going to address something that you have been very vocal against since the very beginning. So patch 1.0.4 is live now. And if you haven't listened to the show often before, Joe and Viper have a very hate-hate relationship. And
I mean, it's not hate.
It's
it's more like this is
bad.
very obviously the worst hero, and you haven't really done anything in the way of like helping her other than giving her some bizarre like mechanic that is negligible at best. And now she's finally seeing useful changes that I think will impact her play rate and utility.
And we are going to talk about those. It's really exciting. I think to see some changes to Viper. One of my in the Valhalla days, we had a player named Jammies who always played Viper on Split, and he did so again over this past week in the PAX Invitational, and that was pretty cool to see. I don't even know if it's on 1.0.4 or not when he did that, but I don't know, actually. You might see Viper sneak up here. So let's talk a little bit about patch 1.0.4 and a couple of things that we saw. We've got the Elder Flame weapon skins, which those came out last week. They're the dragon skins, but they did change some of the volume cues, the sound cues on them because they were really loud. And then
they're kind of obnoxious.
They also took a look at the pre-round buy menu a little bit and changed some classic all-fire tuning, which
I think the new buy menu is actually really useful. It had like some sort of stats before, but I think these are a lot more clear on like when and where guns are a little bit better and worse. Gives you like proper damage rate, distance fall off kind of charts and numbers, which is really useful. Yeah, just nice kind of clarity from the buy menu, which I think is a great change. I think people are a little bit more like active when they're looking at what guns to buy now, where they're like, oh, well, this gun's a lot slower than I remember it to be. Like, that's different. Like they're paying more attention. Like the number, like it seems like the UI designers have done a good job at like giving something to people.
Yep.
To kind of like really tangibly hold and read. Feels like they're paying attention, so that's good.
Let's be real, though. The biggest change and the best change in all this patch notes is the observer fixes. So they fixed the observer mode so you can actually see like the scoreboard throughout the entire second half of the match. Unless the observer has to hold the scoreboard as you go into the second half of a round or a map, or they won't like It'll only show you the top fraggers on each side. But they also did something that was kind of cool, where the observer minimap now is colored by team. The field of vision is colored by team. So you can see, because right now it used to be white for whoever. So if you have two intersecting lines of vision, it just looked like a big blob of white, and you couldn't really tell who was seeing where and what. And it's a minimap. It's literally mini. They changed that now, so you actually have the green and red line of sight, so you can see where they're looking. Makes it a lot easier to follow who's holding what sight lines, where sight lines are overlapping. Loved it. My favorite change in the whole patch by far, which the spectator mode and just that kind of spectator experience still has a ways to go, but
for sure
it's every patch, every patch
getting better.
There's something newer.
We're getting there. Hopefully there's not just another bug to wallow about this patch, but so far so good. Can't complain. So far this patch has been pretty bug proof.
Have they talked about the gun thing in the pistol rounds? You know what I'm talking about? The suede with the phantoms?
Yeah. Where
There's
there? Just like some sort of weird profile that the OBS client bugs out into, and it's suede. It's always brimstone. He has all of his abilities, and everybody's suede for whatever reason. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that, but I'll have to check.
I didn't see it. I'm looking through the bugs. There's a lot of like bugs fixes for brimstone specifically, so like I don't know if that got in there, but
sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was always annoying. It's not like it's really hard to figure out what people are playing. It's just like a mildly confusing, especially because of the heroes.
I will say, like, one of the big ones was that like colors were swapping, where like if you were spectating like a defender,
the worst,
and like the allied colors and the offender colors were swapping, where like an ally was obviously standing next to them, but they'd be colored in red even though they were defending on the green team. So it was like very jarring to be like, okay, who and where am I looking at? It didn't happen super often, but it was kind of very disorienting, especially at like a glance. But again, we'll have to see what this new patch brings. Maybe there's a new bug to bang on about.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of these changes. Sorry, I'm distracted because Boston. the one time Boston Uprising, dude. I'll never understand. I'll never understand that entire org. Let's talk about some of these Vipers changes. So first one would be Viper's Pit, which is her ultimate. And the max time outside of her ultimate before it collapses has been changed from 5 seconds to 15 seconds. That seems pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
Viper can hold the ability key to drop her ult early.
Like it.
And then enemies in Viper's Pit have their minimap obscured and do not provide minimap detection to their allies. And lastly, increased the brightness of the red enemy glow at the edge of Viper's near sight.
Okay.
So
that one feels like the least impactful. It's kind of like a quality of life thing. Like you can see people in the smoke a little bit better. I don't think this is like the biggest move in the world for her ult. I like the fact that you're not just like forced to be inside of it anymore. You can kind of not mind game people, but you can kind of bounce in and out to kind of reset that 15-second timer and feel like you're not trapped within this like 10 by 10 square. I like that a lot. Overall, I think the bigger changes are coming, but it's a good move. I like it. I think the ults, like balancing an agent for their ult in general, is a little kind of sleeper, but I won't complain. I think it's a nice change. It allows her to be a little bit more flexible with her ult.
A lot more, like another 10 seconds. That's a lot more. That's 3 times more. More sneaky, like outplay. Like there is a level of out. Like you're not leaving. If you're leaving your ultimate, when it's 5 seconds, you're just leaving it there, and it basically just stays up, right? It stays up. You're leaving for whatever reason, and that's typically bad. 15 seconds though means that you have, and I always kind of think of like on Split as a great example of a place where there's a lot of places that you can be already in Viper on B. I always forget which side's B. Which side's the not all concrete side? The one that's more like graffitied and small shack size. That B or A?
If I'm understanding the descriptor, it sounds like B.
Okay. The other side is like shopping mall, like all concrete and
all
like,
white.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the long A hallway, A ramps coming up.
Yeah, that's A. So B.
Yeah, that's A. B.
So on B side or whatever, there's already a lot of spots, but once you can be out of there for 15 seconds, there's a lot more spots there. She still feels pretty specialized though.
Yes. We'll get to some added changes that may make her a little less specialized, but I think in general people are starting to get a little bit more, how would you say, they're using Viper's Pit a little bit more aggressively, especially on attack. That's kind of like where people are finding the most struggle with Viper, is on these attacking rounds, because you are so committed once you like lay down your curtain, or you just try to set up. She feels like she feels like a pseudo staller on defense, where it's like, okay, I'm Cypher on attack. What do I do? What are these abilities used for? And I think people have gotten very good at that. People are starting to experiment a little bit more with Viper, specifically with her ultimate to kind of like control space. This will allow her to control space a little bit better. So you can just put it down, leave it, threaten that you could be in this smoke or not by moving around for the next 15 seconds and then resetting the timer by stepping in and out. So yeah, overall, I think it's good. I think she's it'll be a nice change for her, I think.
And that's just her ultimate.
Yep.
The next part is her decay. So how it's typically worked with decay is once you get out of one of her abilities that cause decay, you start regaining your health. I don't know if it's immediately or like less than a second immediately, but very quickly. Yeah. They've now changed it to where the enemy decay per second is increased from 10 to 15. And after you exit the smoke, the enemy decay sustains for 2.5 seconds before it starts to fade.
That's a lot, yeah.
That is a lot. That's like one of the big 2 changes that I think are really going to impact her play. Yeah. Because you are so much more punished for trying to push through a lot of these smokes that she's laying down.
Yeah.
That's going to be super impactful.
Like her smokes are now nuts, right? Comparatively.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say nuts, but I definitely think you're going to think twice before trying to push through them, where before you were just pushing and, taking the duel with her like immediately after pushing. Now you're at like a much bigger disadvantage than previously for a much longer amount of time. So like I do think other smokes are a little bit better.
Why?
I think the usefulness of Viper still comes down to like the reapplication of your nades, of your curtains, things like that. Like you need to be able to use them multiple times to feel like you're getting use out of the agent, rather than like, oh, I got a smoke, cool. Omen has a smoke, Brim has a smoke, Jet still has smokes to a degree.
Sure.
And they have usefulness elsewhere, where she feels like her identity is in this reactivation of the curtain, reactivation of the nade, the repositioning of the nade. So if you can get use out of that, which I think Decay will kind of make her a better staller, if we're kind of like leaning into that kind of definition of agents, kind of your sages, your ciphers. Now, I think we could argue that Viper could be a pretty good staller. I think it's still definitely going to be map dependent. I think this only benefits her on, well, not only benefits, but it definitely makes her better on split, which I think she'll probably see a big play rate increase. I'm still banging the drum that I think she's genuinely good on Ascent as, or in that smoke role. I think you could get away with it, maybe supplementing it with like an Omen, just in case you can't get your curtain down or find reactivation usage with your curtain. So yeah, in terms of the Decay, you're going to have to think a little bit more than just kind of like AFK push through it. It is what it is. Like, I'm just going to regen my health anyways. It's going to incentivize Vipers to actually play with their smokes instead of just kind of like using it as a smoke. They can actually kind of use it not as a molly, but like in that same kind of vein where it's like, okay, if they push through, I'm going to have a better chance of winning this duel because they're going to be weak.
It slows that push a lot or speeds up that push a lot, both of which have like their tactical advantages. So
I think she's definitely one of the harder heroes to get use of, like just generally. But maybe we'll go into that after the next.
She still fills a niche. I don't think that this is all of a sudden like we're going to see a ton of Viper play. It's very much like we're defensive sided, we're on split. It's okay to run a Viper type of thing versus you know, something where it's just like, yeah, of course we're running Sova. Like, you know, of course we're running Sage, which even it doesn't get run anymore. Of course we're running Omen. Yeah, there's just there is one more thing though with Reyna, or not Reyna, my god. Reyna, Viper, that hasn't changed. And that is you can now use Poison Cloud and Toxic Screen, and it doesn't consume additional fuel based on, like, it doesn't consume double fuel.
Yeah, which is nice.
So basically it's like once you're using it, it doesn't matter if you have one thing up or two things up, you're using the same amount, which is great for making it easier to manage your resources, because it got clunky and it would go pretty fast, which I think, Joe, was kind of one of your original criticisms of it, was that the fuel system, well, I don't think you totally dismissed the fuel system, but it was like the way it is now is it's way too punishing to use, that you can only use it at certain key times. You have like 10 to 15 second window to use it before it's all gone and you're done. So that should help a ton.
Yeah, I think this is probably the biggest change for Viper, is the fact that you can effectively smoke like an entire site down, or like all of mid on Ascent and then some with your nade. Like, I think this is easily my favorite change. I think the fuel system is like unique and interesting, but like you're saying, you can't, if the identity of the agent is to have this reactivatable ability like kind of set, and you're tied to like this very finite fuel system, it feels really bad when you're like, okay, I want to like smoke a link on Ascent, a defense, and try to like put up my curtain to reposition, and they're like paper thin and super fast. I don't have a ton of time to either get my team in or like have my defense rotate around. Now, this gives you so much stalling potential. This gives you so much like threat, because not only do you have like the extra decay damage, not only do you have that extra decay like time buffer, but you have almost, I won't say double, but it feels like you have double fuel to work with. I think that's going to like really, really impact their play rate. I genuinely think like she's like playable now. Now it comes down to like finding the one ways, finding the positionings for the Viper. What maps is she good on? We already know that she's seen like niche but relatively consistent use on Split as like that's her map. If you're gonna see her played, that's where she's gonna be played. I think she can potentially break into Ascent in that meta, kind of shake it up a little bit with how much mid control is still being figured out. I think that could kind of help things. Bind, I think she has some one ways on Bind. I think Bind would be a little interesting to see. Curtain usage now that it pierces through walls a little easier. You don't have to like figure out a way to, finagle it. It just goes through things. Yeah, I genuinely think Viper will see more play. We'll see an increase in play rate with all these changes. I still think she's probably the hardest hero in the game just because of how impactful each ability placed is. So because you don't get to pick up your curtain, it's just one and done. That has to be where you're committing. So an easy way, pro tip, if you're playing against a Viper in your ranked games and here comes this giant curtain, you probably there's a high percent chance that the enemy team is coming that direction. So you can kind of communicate to that to your team. And I'm going to say 7 out of 10 times somebody's rounding that corner that isn't Viper along with the rest of the team, along with Viper. Like it's so important to be able to get use out of that it's a giant like red flag. Hard hero, going to see an increased play rate, I think. Not noob friendly, I'll say.
Yeah, it's not. And I'm the question I have is, and in essence, like where she's going right now, she also has to either compete with the two strongest agents in the game, Cypher and Sage, as an anchor, or the only other application I would see is over Raze eventually, but I don't think Raze will be nerfed anytime soon. I think she absolutely can function as a trench buster and like something that you use to clear angles out with that specific change. Like very much like you cannot sit in a Raze nade, even though it will one-shot you for to be fair. Like you cannot now not sit in a Viper utility case.
So you're saying like using smoke grenade as like an offensive tool as well? Like it adds a little bit more versatility, so it doesn't have to just be defensive. Like you can kind of use it as like a bad molly.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Now the problem is that's the third best champion for the agent for the longest time. So like the things that Viper does, it just seems others do it so well. Now because they can do both, she can do both. That's interesting to me also what it means for offense, right? Maybe you can play Sageless, have a little bit of a weaker anchor, and then also have more bust potential on the flip side. I think this might honestly be the change where people start to figure stuff out more, where the incentive is more given more, where more people are going to get in on her. I saw, for instance, Mixwell was practicing with a. I'm not sure if that was a troll or not, but yeah, I don't know. This is
Echo 8
kind of exciting.
Echo 8 played with Viper.
Yeah, with Viper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was against Team Kefri, so but
true.
You take what you can get with that one. I think C9 in a pretty recent tournament, I think I remember seeing Tens specifically like abusing a one-way on Split. So again, kind of going to be map dependent, but I agree. Like these changes will make her a little bit more experimental. Teams are going to use her a little bit more. I hadn't thought about using Smoke Grenade as a more versatile tool now that the Decay time buffer now exists, and the fact that it's not going to punish you with your curtain, that it's going to milk more fuel if you're trying to use it aggressively. Yeah, I think it could be. It's again, she feels like she's coming into a more of a niche of like that super flexible, but like not really good at anything kind of agent role. And I don't hate that. I think having that kind of skill set is still very useful. And yeah, to your earlier point, I think we're going to have to see some more nerfs before she becomes like really, really useful, because there are so many other better stallers. There's such little room for like compositional min maxing. It feels like everything generally feels good for the most part on what and how it's played. I think Europe still finding a little bit more use out of Breach, which I'm a big fan of, and NA finding a little bit more use out of Phoenix are probably the only two things that are like giantly different from like the eye test. So Viper's gonna need some extra, not help, but room given.
Yeah, and there's just, I think like the different, we would have to see just kind of like a different way that different than how we're currently seeing Valorant played, because there always ends up being like, okay, let's take Ascent for example. So on point B, you put Sova and usually a Sage, right? And like that's who you have holding point B. You typically have Cypher holding point A, and then you will have usually your Omen and whoever else, that kind of flex player. Omen usually will hold like that A short kind of corridor, but sometimes there's a couple teams that play him courtyard, and then they play whoever else, Reyna or whoever else they end up using on Ascent they use there. Where does Viper fit in there? Sage, to Yiska's point, is like the only place that like Viper could potentially like take over, in my opinion. That seems that is just a overall net loss, or we would have to again fundamentally re-understand how we defend that map and how we defend and how just to use Viper in general. And we have seen it was Renegades against Sentinels that tried a lot. Like what they would try to do on their offensive pushes is they would actually just push on B side. They would push the courtyard, like 4 or 5 of them, like four of their 12 rounds. They pushed courtyard from that the B side into courtyard, and they would push that there. Mm-hmm. Does that change how you can defend courtyard with somebody like Viper? What does a diminishing smoke do there? Or what does the Viper, not Viper's Pit, what's her little Molly looking thing called again?
Like the Venom thing or the smoke grenade?
Not the smoke grenade, the
goo, right?
The goo.
The goo, yeah.
Yeah.
Like what do those types of things do to close that down, if that ends up being like a better, more fine-tuned strategy later on? Like I think that there are some ways that we just like might see the game and the play evolve, but at the same time, I'm not that's purely like theory crafting of like try to create a world in which this happens. I'm not saying that actually would happen.
Oh, for sure. That's the big thing, is I don't think that like Sage has really fallen off. I'm not a big fan of like the Sageless comps as much as I like the idea of experimentation on like the meta, but I still think Sage is very, very good. The wall, still a problem. The amount of just time you can buy, really strong. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep, I agree.
Probably going to need more tweaks, to be honest. She's still very, very strong.
Really quickly, there's just a few more changes on this here. Raze and Brimstone have their ultimates changed from 6 points required to 7 ult points required.
That's fine.
Stim Beacon, your guys' least favorite ability, no longer buffs enemies and no longer shows its effect radius to enemies. Great quality of life changes.
Yeah, that's good.
For Brim,
I feel like I And I mean, there's pros and cons to not having the circle shown. Right?
Yeah, there have been times where you can kind of like bait a direction on like a 50-50 where you get an early stim and like, oh, maybe he's sitting in the stim or maybe he's not.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of downside to this change. The fact that it doesn't buff enemies is like great.
I honestly didn't really like. I didn't know it did that.
That's easily the most impactful use of stim beacon that I've seen. Is somebody threw it on offense, pushing into garage on Haven, into double doors. I think somebody from B main on defense wraps around them and gets a triple, walking into their stim beacon. Walking into the enemy's stim beacon. That's the best use of stim beacon that I've seen is the opposite kind of effective use. It is a trash ability.
Oh, be quiet. Get off my lawn.
I'm more interested in Brimstone's arm fidelity.
Okay, fair. Me too, though. And so Brimstone's arm fidelity has been increased. If you ever played Brimstone, his arms were like a couple of pieces of salmon, like just like uncured salmon, and you can now looks like it belongs in the game and not in Doom for your Sega
sickly
Genesis.
arms.
Yep.
Fair.
Cyber Cage can be picked up during the buy phase, and then
Nice quality of life.
yeah.
I don't know how many times I've thrown my cyber cages and spawn just placing my hands back on the keyboard after like stretching, and I place down and there's a cyber cage and spawn. Sweet.
Yikers.
That's for all you who can't get the lineup for the one way on Ascent, right? So you get a couple of tries.
It's true too. Yeah, it's nice forgiving little thing. Like it doesn't really make sense why that was a thing to begin with. Outside of like just making it more punishing. I really don't want to hear Golden Boy though go, oh, he messed up the Cypher Cage placement before the teams can even move out of their spawns. Like you don't want to hear that really either, do you?
Yeah.
So anyways, overall, great patch changes. I don't really want to spend a whole lot more time on it. I want to talk about esports. Can we talk about esports?
I think we can.
Let's talk about esports. Yiska, we're coming to you on this one. Your region continues to just let excellent talent break apart, fall apart, go away. Party Parrots disbanded. I know you've spoken about Shao before as being one of your favorite, if not your top unsigned talent in EU. I don't know if I might be putting those words in your mouth. But
I mean, technically, you still got to count Fish 1 to 3, right? But yeah,
Liquid 1 2 3.
It's true.
Yeah, right. But yeah, sure. Outside of Fish 1 2 3, Party Parrots have been one of the best teams to date, and Shao has been one of the best free agents on that team or any team for that matter.
Yeah.
They're gone now. This is a team that at its peak had beaten Fish 1 2 3 Prodigy. That was back when it was the formerly Nipcore, Fabrican, Royals, many others.
Yeah.
Sad to see them go.
They honestly also like were very close to taking both favorites out at wasn't it G2 and they played G2 close and they played Fish close, right?
Fish.
Both series were 2-1. Honestly, like super good performance all around. Some of them went into like ridiculous overtimes as well. So this went really close, and you would think like maybe it's just that CIS esports organization in Europe just don't have an interest in Valorant yet. But otherwise, like this is Team Navi instantly, right? Yeah. Like Shao is one of the best players in Europe, honestly. Like statistically, he backs it up. He's smart. He's cracked in terms of mechanics as well. Like I think he might have been top 3 statistically in at the WePlay. So it's a shame. Angel also, of course, yes, he's a little older, but can still definitely frag with the big guys and
Can
also
anchor a
create
few
solid
rosters,
strategies.
yeah.
And to a degree, it was kind of sobering for fans of more tactical Valorant, what transpired at We Play, because I felt like the more tactical teams didn't have either the strategical prowess yet to totally overcome their individual skill gaps. Because, like, if we're being honest, both finalists were the worst strategical teams against their semifinal opponents. I felt anyway. I felt NIP was a stronger strategical team, and I also felt that about Party Parrots most definitely. So it is kind of sad, but you also, like, I felt like that maybe you can find like one or two good additions, because what we've learned from this weekend feels like we're still in an era where individual skill just trumps. Like everyone on G2 had hard carry performances throughout their tournament life, and also I would say also at Vitality, where it's like David P had a pretty quiet Vitality. Then he went completely off some maps at We Play. Yeah. And I saw people argue that he was the MVP. Wouldn't go as far. I still would give it either to Artis or Mixwell on that one. But yeah, like just everyone on that team is ridiculously skilled, with the exception of Pith. That tournament, that particular tournament where he was very quiet, and he has acknowledged that, okay, like I'm on a team of, I'm basically on Valorant phase, and like I gotta bring the level of to the game, because like it feels like, and this is different than in CS maybe, even though I'm not sure if that's actually true, but it feels like the carry player is also the support player in a sense, or what we generally think of support. And here's the reason why. You want your star player to survive late into the round most of the time.
Yeah.
You want your star player to be into the side either in third, or in rare cases in a second position. Into any given side, especially when you're playing with trinominals and binominals. So you have like a team of 2 and 3 going into respective entrances. So your star player pretty much should be the last one going in. And the best way to do that is for them to be on a breach, or like on anything that has to use an ability before they go in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd agree with that.
And even Reyna, to a degree, fills that role, because you shouldn't be entering with Reyna either, because you're not getting the full value out of your own Leah if you first peek on your own Leah. You want someone to peek off your utility. So therefore, like, it made strategical sense, I thought, for instance, for Scream to be on breach, because that's the carry position then, right? Now, if he is actually suited from a temperament point of view is a different discussion, but yeah, like generally, I think from an execute perspective, from a fresh take on Valorant, going over from strategies to even like the gun choices were pretty interesting. Like how they use, like what spots they banged or whatever. It feels like almost like a mini meta game is going on in EU, and it is a shame that Party Parrots couldn't like stay together for longer, because I genuinely think that this team either could be on a good day rivaling the top 2 teams, or they were 1 or 2 substitutions or play exchanges away from cracking them permanently, just by virtue of being the more strategical team in either case. And I also believe that in the long run, these teams, given the nature of what I anticipate the game to be, I think they will eventually win this big time. And players like, for instance, like a Scream, unless they change, won't be as impactful. Now, it's of course like the best of cases is if Shao actually lands on one of these nuts teams.
That's kind of my speculation is why an immediate disband? Why not changing the roster? It feels like a good portion or some sort of core to this roster, whether that's like an individual that was just like a giant vocal leader or like a star player like Shao, has been kind of poached away. And it's like, okay, why don't we just try to disperse and find our own homes at this point? Because the roster has been picked apart in some capacity. That's what I'm taking away from a lot of this, is like somebody has gotten a nod, and that's great. It's unfortunate that the whole team didn't, because they were very talented. I will say, I want to come back to that point on what position you should have your star player in, because I think the more that I think about it, the more I agree. I think we could dive more into like who and where and what agents are being played in that position, because there are some that are a little weird.
Yeah.
Party Parrots though deserved an org. I'm interested to see what comes from this roster. If Navi's building like a core, does Shao kind of like fit within it? Is this the symptom of this kind of post-COVID esports world where people are a little gun shy in Valorant still right now, especially in EU? People are still trying to like, we're still seeing orgs not really sign teams very quickly. They're picking people very specifically and doing things slowly, which I don't hate, but it's sad because you kind of lose out on brilliant teams like this. So it's sad to see them go.
So
it's also,
go ahead.
Like in EU, I haven't heard of any more organizations really having the strong drive to go in. That's the problem.
So you do have Dinks, Artist, and Shao. Like, so I'm thinking, remember back in, I can't remember which one it was, but we had Forza be invited, and they did quite terribly.
Poorly.
Like, could you bring them on there? Assuming that we don't have like a Fnatic or a Dignitas or a Virtus Pro or Vitality, which is is an organization that has hosted tournaments in Valorant but hasn't actually announced a roster. Unless they announce just kind of an all EU type organization and there's something new coming, if they're going somewhere existing, like the only kind of Russian based team that is doing that is really is Forza. And again, they didn't do very well. I could see them like picking that up there. I don't know if that makes them real contenders or dangerous at all, but I do think that means like there is a world in which we have an all Russian roster that that actually does compete there.
Yeah.
I think they are Hungarian, which might still be like the cultural proximity there might still. I'm not sure if that's at all true.
But have that all wrong.
What are they?
I have for on VLR.gg and Wikipedia. I have Russian for all those. So.
Oh no, they're okay. Yeah, they're okay. We say okay. Like this is. When am I mistaking them? Oh, I think Null Panky, right? Was it or Need More DM?
Need More DM is Hungarian.
Yeah. Okay, that's the confusion. Yeah. So then that makes sense. Yeah. Then again, like Forza's
a small org still. Well, again,
and they're also not a good team. For being honest,
that's right? What John's saying is why that they're ranked at all is because they got invited to a tournament that they probably shouldn't have been invited to. But when you're looking at like let's so there's what 4 different scenarios. I don't know. That's a made up number. There's this many scenarios. Number 1, they're all picked up and signed to a major brand new org. Highly unlikely. Number 2, some of them are picked up and signed to a brand new org. also pretty unlikely out right now, but not out of the realm of possibility, but very difficult to speculate on.
For sure.
Number 3, they're all going separate ways and going to existing organizations. All of them probably can't fit into that because there's only like, 4 like actual existing teams behind an organization in EU. And then, so then you kind of have to go
like
down
that.
below that to like the small little like, we have a esports organization and blah blah blah, and that's where you kind of get into like you kind of get into Forza, right, where they're kind of like they're a smaller organization, but they are Russian based. They field a Russian team, and you've got 3 people who are Russian in Party Parrots. Like maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like this team is actually like if you look at the actual lineup and just recall moments, they are also a team that had universal pop-off moments where it's like everyone on this lineup could legitimately take over a map, and it's sad. Like there's no reason really for them to break up, and I don't know if there is currently even a better constellation of players that fit into that language paradigm. Like I don't know. I also genuinely don't know how good the English is of any of these players, for instance,
to be able to move
They
over.
also just might like reform Prodigy right now, like
yeah, maybe
because I
You
mean
just pick up like the
Angel,
strong bits.
Angel, Shao, are all with like they're represented by Prodigy because they're a talent agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've got Shao there, you've got Angel there. I don't think you have SSK. Shao and Angel are the only ones that I know of that are actually like represented at any level. So like, you know, maybe Prodigy is just gonna, you know, like rebuild their kind of third one. They gave up their NIP core. They had some people from Fabrican. Soul Kiss was on there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Fisher were all Fishers there. I'm pretty sure they were. But yeah, like
most are represented by Prodigy, I'm pretty sure.
It's almost at the point where I'm like, if you're an American organization that can justify it, or even an Asian organization, or like, for instance, like someone like a T1, why not?
I mean, yeah, I think the budget. I mean, I won't speak on any kind of
COVID.
That's the next good thing. I would assume you would have to pay them less salary, given that they kind of want to do that, and their cost of living being like reasonably lower, right? So, I mean, that's not amazing, but like you kind of want to keep that squad together, and then maybe. Like, I'm not sure how that culture would work, but like, for instance, of Null Panky, like Vac is also another name that stands out. Like maybe get him in with these guys. Like, oh my God. Like this probably sounds from a like Eastern European perspective, this sounds probably very much like uneducated, and someone's just going to be in the comments going like, yeah, that's not going to work, like languages and whatnot. Like, okay, in which case, well, we tried to make this work. Like, but yeah, in a better world, in a post-COVID world, I'm almost certain that this would be like one of the big CIS rosters, almost without changes already. Because like, if you're pushing like high budget rosters like G2 already so far, then you're golden.
Here's some tea leaf reading. I'll do a little bit of speculating. Okay. I think Angel's got an in with a couple of old CS pros that are moving over, or like some tier 2 like stars that are moving over finally. And I think him and Shao are like building a new team for somebody. That's what I'm gonna guess.
Wasn't he also on Twitter one of the guys that was kind of like disgruntled by the situation though? would kind of speak against him. I felt like I read a tweet of his where he's just like, oh yeah, Party Parrots is dead. And Shao was, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would have to look at it again because it's been a while since these tweets, but yeah, it's of course sad. Like, I don't know. You can pick the peak for its parts, but even like the quote unquote weaker players still are European, like, just individually, they deserve to be in every single tournament that they play in, and based on the like invite, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's sad.
Oh, certainly. No, yeah, Party Parrots could have easily been like somebody's entrance into either the European kind of market or just a European team that wants to kind of throw some money at Valorant just to see what sticks. I think this would have been a fantastic way into the space. And again, it's just sad to see him go.
Yeah.
Wish him nothing but the best, though.
Yeah.
They're talented enough to go wherever they so choose. So best of luck.
Yeah. And this is a team that has, like, to be fair, this is a team that, like, through like Waves and Wave Esports Invitational and through ePolls, like their stock went super high, right? And then they kind of started to like drop kind of significantly off to, like, it kind of felt like a point where, you know, sell high kind of thing. Like they were kind of, I don't want to say they were underperforming because that's not true, but they were dropping some uncharacteristic matches, I think.
Which is fair, yeah. And then, I mean, I saw a bunch of respectable tier lists, and they all had Party Parrots for the time that G2 and Fish were like inactive as number one in the region. I think that also makes sense to me, unless you want to say hip hip hip. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's sad because very clearly Party Parrots was at least a top 4 team in the in Europe. All 3 other teams have a team or look to get one, and they are the ones excluded from this because, like, there's in their region where they could be marketed to, there isn't an audience yet, or like the orgs are not in a position to offer that. And it's also like, I mean, to a degree, we can argue the utility of like just like almost rushing out Valorant. It felt like, because the opportunity was there, right? Like the big market competitors were all like, you know, like bleeding. You had a pretty functioning game, and there was a global pandemic, and everyone was in front of their PCs. So the idea of launching made perfect sense. Now, for development of an esports scene, this is not amazing, simply because there are no lands to develop a scene with, and therefore there's also less sponsorship money because of the global pandemic. There's less willingness to take a chance on this, especially in Europe, where monetization is always like a problem because we have endemic markets, and like German economy has very little, like German companies have very little incentive to like advertise in Lithuania or whatever, right? So it's not as easily marketable as it is in the US. So yeah, it all had its ups and downs, but like this is definitely one of the disadvantages that Europe is currently feeling, and maybe we're just going to be a little bit behind on the development and can't expect like a full professional circuit. Because if we're looking over to the PAX Invitational now, like virtually every single team but Homeless that got past the group stage is sponsored, right? That's 7
and like
sponsored teams.
Super sponsored. Like not like kind of sponsored, like
no, like tier 1 esports organizations. Yeah. And there's 3 more esports organizations that were in those groups and didn't get out.
Yeah.
Right? Like 100 Thieves didn't make it out, Complexity didn't make it out, Renegades didn't make it out. Like that's still very good esports organization, arguably tier 1 organizations, all of them as well, with maybe I mean, we can argue Renegades, but
I mean, complexity tier 1. Do you think?
Complexity these days,
dude. They have don't they have Cowboys money now? And they're just ramping up and have
they
like
have
ridiculous
Cowboys
offers.
money, but they don't have Cowboys
sure.
results. Like I don't.
And CS they do. Like CS is
Sure, and
correct in CS.
that's something I will say. I'm a little bit ignorant outside of like.
I haven't heard much
our esports
from
that we live in,
the extra faucets that I consume media content through. Yeah,
I am perfectly happy with saying
well
that.
in the past.
There are also just some teams that are like insane in CS or like League, and like they have these huge insane followings. So I'm like, I've heard of them like 3 times, and I feel really bad about it. I should be a better esports fan.
I mean,
I'm a bad person. I'm a bad
these
person.
days.
I still find it very bizarre that Complexity didn't pick up the Built by Gamers like Code 7 roster with how much like ties they have. I don't know if maybe like a lot of the people from like Complexity like parted ways back from like the Overwatch kind of roster, but again, a lot of the old Complexity Overwatch roster is now in Valorant on Built by Gamers, and Complexity's over here kind of bombing out of a not a particularly hard group, but
you think so?
I think Code 7, if Complexity were to side Code 7, now Built by Gamers, you put them in Group D, I think they could take
Cloud9. The names again? No. Nah, dude. Like Cloud9 is legitimately a top 4 organization now in NA.
I mean, okay, are we talking about the org or are we talking about the team?
The team.
I don't
look at the recent performances. Like Cloud9 is
you
not
said top 4 in NA.
I think so.
So TSM, T1 are both above them.
Immortals Gen G. Yeah, that's 4.
Immortals Gen G, and honestly, Sentinels.
I don't think they're worse than Gen G. I think they will absolutely undress Gen G.
I think you have to give Gen G or Sentinels. I would still put them. I would put them.
Sentinels probably, yeah. I think Gen G is going to get clapped.
So that still puts them 5th because you have Immortals.
I'll be surprised if C9.
I don't think they're worse than Immortals either.
I mean, they play.
Like, look at their recent results, right? Like, am I misremembering this? It's not just a 10 show anymore.
No, it definitely sells.
They just recently clapped Gen G. Right?
I don't.
Yes. A charity cup that I heard nothing about, but it is surprising.
I love C9. I want to say this right now. I want C9 to be top 4, and I think that once they hammer out their finalized roster, they will be a top 4 team. Right now, they're not. I don't think.
Yeah. And this roster, like, I'm pretty sure this roster is just what
if you're
going
to say they're a top 4 team, I think that they're in a 3-way tie with those 2 others. I mean, all have equally powerful or like equally strong arguments for that 4th slot.
I mean, okay, the initial argument was that Joe thinks like they shouldn't get out of that group. I totally like. Code 7 is not a better team than Cloud9.
Less to do with them like guaranteed getting out, but I think they could have took C9 closer than this Complexity roster did. I don't see much of a future.
I don't get.
Not to say that these are bad players, but
I don't get it.
Not a fan of a lot of the players there. It seems very.
That was like the Big Frames roster, right?
Yeah. Like,
or is that Renegades?
Let's see. This is Frames LOL. So yeah, Big Frames. I'm pretty sure. Checking a couple of them. Oh hi, Comms new. Relatively speaking.
No, Big Frames went to Renegades.
Frames LOL.
Big Frames went to Renegades, and then Complexity signed. They were most of these guys weren't really playing at all.
No, they're playing on Frames LOL.
The problem really that I see with Cloud9 is that we are currently like educating or raising tends to be this absolute hyper carry, and I've already seen him pick up very bad Pepega habits where he like dry peeks corners while breach stunned just because like he thinks he can win that duel, like, or like he underestimates the duration or whatnot and just wants to take that duel every single time, right? And to a degree, I mean, if you just like win 70% of your duels just dry like that, I can see how that forms a habit. That's not something that will sustain them through the remainder and even in the near future through.
I mean,
games.
yeah.
I will also say though, like,
that's why I don't think they're very strong. I don't know. If he's already picking up some bad habits, do you think Shinobi's gonna help you carry these games? I think Vice is gonna help you carry these games.
I think Vice might.
I don't know.
We'll see. And now, of course, they still got to sign him beforehand. Maybe they're still changing stuff.
Yeah.
Even though they've been. And
I
agree.
With
these guys.
This seems like the roster you're gonna go with, and they're just kind of like milking it for all it's worth, and it is what it is. I am interested to like go back and look at some of these games from this charity tournament that C9 actually like performed like extremely well in. The esports Doug X United charity clash, where they took first. Didn't hear much in the way of press about this. But
the good old
beating
Doug.
Way Too French, Echo 8, and Gen G, with Immortals dropping 0-2 to Echo 8. Has me raising an eyebrow. I don't know exactly what that means. We have a history of charity events.
They beat like they.
Don't hate on charity events. That's when you try the hardest. It's for a good cause. Try
like
the best.
2 weeks ago.
Causes.
2 weeks ago, they beat TSM.
They did beat TSM.
So
I have to admit that. I think.
Look at these stats, man. Like, it's not even funny, dude. Like,
Genji.
You also said though last week, because we discussed this, and we said it still doesn't move them out of like the top spot. So
no, but I mean, you still have to give C9 a little bit of credit,
dude.
I mean, quite a bit of credit, sure.
Performed well.
Listen to this. Shinobi 23 kills.
Okay.
Bias 29 kills.
Okay.
Relics 37 kills.
Yeah.
Mitch 38. 1066.
Yeah. This is the 10 show. Still the 10 show. Nothing's changed. The game is one-dimensional as it gets.
Dude, this kid is like, I saw like an interview with Puckett, and he had like these quick-fire questions, and he was asked best ultimate in the game, and the kid actually goes Jet ultimate. Like, I was just like, okay, yeah, if you have perfect aim, that ultimate is very good, because you can actually Pepega peek over obstacles into the air and just like Quake shoot someone railgun in the head. Yes, that's exactly what he does. It's ridiculous. Like, this is like, if today I was writing an article about him, and I was like, sort of like, god damn it, I already used deadlift as a metaphor, and I can't do it in 2 esports. Like, I really wanted to use it. Like, he's just a workhorse, and everyone's sitting on his back. It's rude, dude. Like,
that's where I'm like, I think they have shown glimpses of being a top 4 team, and then they immediately just get like, they play second in their groups. It's like, okay, if you're going to be like a good team, you should be getting second in your groups. And yeah, you upset TSM. How often does that necessarily happen? If you play out of 100 games, I think it's like pretty rare.
Getting second out of your groups behind Sentinels though is not.
It's not that bad. Yeah,
it's not.
It's not bad, but it's not a good like sense of like them improving and being like a solidified top 4 team if you're not being able to beat Sentinels. Gen G. Let's look at some other groups where they just bomb out. Didn't make it out of the T1 X Nerd Street Gamers Invitational. They got banged out by Together We Are Terrific. Like, I need a little bit more from C9.
Good
yes,
squad,
not a bad squad,
like,
but again,
I get, like, I'm not disagreeing with you, and that was also at a point where they only had 2 signed players. They finally signed Mitch, right? And so like, we're signing more players, they're filling it out, and they're improving with every additional. They're only at 60% capacity. Think of it that way. Let's just think of it that way.
They're only like the same roster. I guess Poach was on one, but
so like, but again, they're improving. They're getting better. They're like using poor results after they've since had better results, I think is a little bit awkward for me. Like, they have played better. I want Cloud9 to be that 4th spot. And if you had to ask me in 2 months who I think is going to be in that 4th slot, then I think it will be Cloud9. But
yeah, I don't know.
No. Get out the tea leaves, dude. Tell me right now. Hey Siri, remind me in 2 months to see who the 4th best team in NA is. Thank you.
I also think, I think in 2 months they are
the 4th.
And after the show, I will tell you why.
Jeez.
I'm interested with the FaZe rumors. What happens with that team?
Let's talk about it. So there are some FaZe we got some FaZe juice here. So FaZe right now is not a complete team. They have Jason R and Corey. And then they've had just a lot of stand-ins. They only played in the charity invitational, right? They haven't played in anything since.
They played in the Nerd Street Gamers Showdown.
Oh yeah, it was Nerd Street, not the charity.
Stand-ins with some of the homeless guys that are now playing with homeless. Zachary from Overwatch, and that's about it. Yeah, I don't even think Jason was playing.
So it is.
That's a weird thing. I don't understand.
It's since then been reported that they're going to be signing Raucus and who?
Raucus, Baby, and Zach might be returning. Yeah, that's the kind of rumor floating about right now, and that piques my interest. I think Corey doesn't currently rival Tens in terms of being that kind of a workhorse, but I think I think we'd be lying to ourselves if he doesn't have that kind of level of talent or potential to kind of reach that same kind of status. And then taking somebody like Baby Bay, who is bulletproof in that sense, and I think will kind of make more of a name for himself in this particular game. Those two alone in 2 months with the core that may change. We'll have to see. We'll see. We'll have to see how good Raucus is at this game. Maybe he'll be the IGL, but that's where I go, okay, you already have 2 superstar potential players on your team. 2 months down the line, I'm giving you more of a credit or more of a nod than a team that is the 10 show still signing players that have only made it the 10 show for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in taking a gamble on FaZe, unless there's something changes, which in case, again, I can't know. But I'd be willing to give the nod to FaZe.
The thing is, I honestly, this roster seems half actually good and half personality pickups. With the it's do you actually think Raucus is absolutely correct in Valorant?
No.
Or is he someone that would do well in a FaZe type video? I don't want to. I obviously haven't seen him.
That's the
I'm
thing.
Extrapolating. He's an Overwatch League pro who, probably less than 4 weeks ago, still played actively. Now, of course, and I also mentioned that in my article previewing today. There is something to be said about the grinds or the ability to grind that Overwatch League players bring to the game. And I honestly think Overwatch League coaches, with the exception of League, are the best in esports. And this will be revealed eventually by the value they bring to these games. Also willing to absolutely grind nuts hours, super talented people, bigger rosters. They know how to build out teams around them. CS is still 1 or 2 coaches. That doesn't fly in Overwatch, right?
Well, you also don't have an incredibly changing landscape every 6 months where you need to field a ton of coaches. I don't know. It seems apples and oranges, but I agree. Generally speaking, that I think people sleep on all talent a lot just because it's haha, you shoot shields or haha, mercy mains. To a degree, it is kind of true. I'll be interested to see what Raucus brings to this team because, again, I think he was. How do I word this? I'm interested to kind of go back through his history and really pick the brains of people around him because I think he was one of those people that brought more to the server than what we saw.
Sure.
I think he was more of a vocal leader, an emotional presence, somebody to kind of bring you out of being in your head. I think that was like the big boon that Raucus brought. On top of not being completely like butt cheeks, mechanically speaking. I mean, not the best player ever.
Not just mechanically speaking, by the way.
Sure.
He always ended up being the butt of the joke, didn't he?
You could say that. You could indeed say that. So with Corey, with Baby Bay, I like that core just on its face. Those two players, superstar potential. What happens with that core in the next 2 months? I think they beat C9 in terms of that race for fourth. It's a gamble, but I like the odds.
I'd like to see them play together first. Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
By the way, if that actually happens, Baby Bay, like once again, that was your second best acting performance with your Twitter post after your music video for Ateo. Like, give me a DM for real. You're switching to Valorant. Shoot me a DM, bro. And Baby Bay's just like, no. Period. Like, okay. Right. Like everyone just thinks, okay, maybe you were like approached by another big organization with an NA and now you're tasked to build out that thing. Nah. Even on
that, like the one that was kind of like a memed on and like hyped up to be like this crazy hot take episode, which I mean kind of delivered, but they were also like, I can't imagine where Baby Bay will be going next. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It seems very likely. I'd still say it's rumored. We'll have to see what comes of it, what news is brought up. But 2 months, maybe Zach gets his, bearings in the game. Maybe they just replace him. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I like FaZe. I like him a lot. C9, still the 10 show, Still the 10 show. And we know what that brings us. Second in groups and
fourth in the
beating
region.
Definitely not.
No. I'm with you for now, Joe. I'm with you for now.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Good
Other
change,
than
but
that,
I don't think
though,
it's
we're kind of in the spot where we can wrap up, believe it or not. And in doing that, just make sure that you are watching the PAX Arena Invitational. The group's finished up. The playoff bracket is actually going on right now, which is why if Yiska's a little bit quieter than normal, it's because he's multi-watching esports matches, and that's okay. Yeah. We know it.
60 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much stuff going on right now.
Get it, boy.
It's true.
If you're hanging out with us, though, and you want to stick around, we're going to be doing a game night here just shortly. I think are we gonna watch the second match and then play some games, or are we going to just play some games? What are we gonna do?
I think we should make that contingent on how many people show up, and then maybe just wait and
cool.
Sure, like we first chill, and then ask people if they want to play some games after.
Chill, then game. Fair enough. Chat, thanks so much for hanging out with us, by the way. We really do appreciate you. No new 5-star iTunes reviews this week. But thank you, Chris R34444 for 3 gifted subs and God_Lake for the Twitch Prime sub. We really do appreciate all of that a ton. Thank you so much. Hope you had a ton of fun today. As for me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch and Twitter and YouTube at youtube.com/JohnHorstman. Yiska, shout outs of the week. Where can people find you?
As always, on @Yiska out, I just released a little primer towards these games. If you want to freshen up while they're going on, like the first one is already predetermined because it's TSM, but maybe it's interesting to see the I mean,
dropped to C9. Remember? Come on.
To be fair, they went overtime in the first map, so yeah. For the other matches, I think there's some dope storylines developing there anyway. If I'm being honest, the NA scene is quite a bit more hype at the moment, just based on who's in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's PAX is definitely shaping up to be a really, really good tournament, despite not streaming the group stages for some inexplicable reason, dude.
So dumb.
Come on.
Yeah.
So dumb. But it was kind of fun to watch Myth cast some of his matches and see. Did you see some of Myth's post-match interviews with TSM people. They were the memeiest things ever. He's like, they'd come into Myth's chat and be like, Myth would ask him like, how you feeling after that one? It'd just be like, we're feeling great, bro. We're gonna take it all the way, man. You can just tell by the energy. We're gonna do it. See you later. Bye. And they just like walk out and go on, and they go on to the next match. So it's pretty funny. So I don't know. Hopefully someone makes a highlight or something of those interviews because they're pretty funny. Joe, what about you, man? Shout out to the week. Where can people find you? What's going on?
At the usual places. That's Volamel on Twitter, and if you want like some sort of weird old school like historical Overwatch stuff, you can find me on YouTube as well, I guess. Yeah, probably just chilling, watching PAX, keeping up with things, watch them all. And yeah, we'll see what next week brings us.
Sweet. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Yiska already asked you, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Sometimes I just blaze out for those things.
I was about to say it's late, but it isn't for you.
We're just getting started. We're just getting. Well, it is. You know what though? Like my Fridays just feel like a perpetual 1 a.m. They really do.
That's the best time though.
I'm not an night owl anymore. I go to bed at like 10 to 11. I wake up at 6:30 to 7.
Oh, you mean 1 a.m. at night?
No, 1 a.m. in the afternoon.
Oh, did you say 1 a.m.?
I said 1 a.m.
Oh, okay. Pepega.
All right, chat. We're out of here. Come join us for game night and hanging out, having fun. Grab a drink. Let's celebrate the weekend together. We'll see you on the other side. Bye.
Bye.